All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of One Daily Thought. Today's thought is around simplification and where it inevitably leads. I say that again in reference to kind of ideas, as I mentioned in the first episode, kind of currency that I appreciate, enjoy, sort of trading in, for lack of a better term. And so the world's complex. Like, that's an easy place to start. And the way that we as humans try to make sense of everything around us is to simplify it. There's no other way to do that. And so those simplifications make sense. I mean, humans have to do that to be able to digest the world. But what that inevitably leads to is a lot less predictable. And there are a lot of challenges recently that I think I'll talk to a bit more in later episodes. But within the world recently, we've seen an incredible amount of increase in the volume of information, thanks to the internet, that is out there and available. And that in turn, and I actually have a blog written on this that I'm sure I'll try to cover it at some point, leads to a what I would call the volatility of information to increase. Simply put, says that the information is a lot more dispersed and variant, and there's just a lot more directions that you can go within that. And this has led to something else that I've written about, which is that people feel more and more overwhelmed in the world today than ever before. And there's some really interesting trends that show search volumes for the term bored, or you could use associated terms to see a similar trend. And that's actually been decreasing over time, as the trend for overwhelmed and other similar issues has been increasing substantially over time. So, well, actually, there's a lot of information out there. It's very dispersed, very different, and people are feeling overwhelmed. That's where we are. So this simplification or generalization process people go through is going to be playing more and more of a factor. It's more and more necessary. So that's, again, kind of the world we live in today. And the challenge is any given simplification is incredibly likely to miss one key aspect of an issue. Inherently, that's what you're doing when you're simplifying. You're taking a complex issue, you're throwing out parts that you think don't matter, and making a slightly easier picture for your mind to comprehend. That's all great. But the challenge is then when you stack additional layers of these simplifications on top of each other, you're going to very quickly reach a point of absurdity where you're not missing sort of minor inconsequential facts. Those are multiplying with other facts that you're missing along the way to create a point where your simplification is actually absurd in one dimension. May make sense in some ways, but it's going to be absurdly deficient in explaining the full complex state of reality we are today. So when I look at the media and political discourse today, and I'd say around obviously sort of both sides of the extremes, and a lot of the stuff that you'll see in kind of the, hesitate to use a phrase like mainstream media, but we'll just go with it. We're seeing more and more of these simplifications, and that's actually being driven by a different factor that I will also explain at some point as one that I've worked in. But so much of our world today, and especially in media and politics, is being driven by an advertising model. So you look at Google, you look at Facebook, they are free services. They make money by capturing your attention and showing you ads. And by the way, pretty much every media company works very similarly. New York Times, Washington Post, all of these monetize their product being the news, by showing you ads while you're paying attention to their product. So because of this, there's basically an arms race for your attention. And ironically, this would be part of that arms race. But in any case, that means that people need to cram sort of more and more meaning, more and more sort of big ideas into smaller and smaller space, which is inevitably going to continue the simplification process. So as we do that, again, we start to miss key parts of the picture, nuance is lost, and we get to some crazy extremes. So I could talk about kind of any issue to highlight this, but I think one that has struck me fairly recently is actually the question of abortion, which is obviously a third rail that no one should go near in terms of discussing. But I will. Which is to say, like, the narratives around those and against the sort of other side of the debate have basically at this point been simplified to those on the right, or those who are pro-life, saying that people on the left are, quote unquote, for baby killing. And then from people on the left saying that people on the right who are, either against women's rights or want to, I mean, I've even heard the analogy, right, that, oh, the right must want to lock up women in cages and just use them for, being mother. And that's, again, both of those are obviously ridiculous, right? Like, that, I guess the point of absurdity. Like, there's no one practically who thinks that either one of those should be the case. Or if there are, they're, a very small, crazy extreme that no one should go anywhere near. And 90 plus 98, who knows what percent of people fall in this middle ground of like, yeah, those 2 points are both absurd, but we've fallen into these traps of kind of adhering to these absurd ideas. So that'll be the topic for next time, actually, which is, if these ideas are absurd, how did they gain, how do they rise, and why are they still around? So tune in next time, see that. Thanks, bye.